Well, good morning, good afternoon, uh, good evening, depending on when you find this. Just want to talk for a good while. Well, not a good while, just depends on on how I'm feeling about this political climate that we're in right now. And as all of you know, early voting has started, and many blacks have went and done their civic duty for the Democrats. And it's not just blacks, whites, and anybody else that participates in the electoral process. So it's going to probably be too late for many of you listening to this anyway. However, it probably won't matter because your mind's already conditioned as to where you, as a black person, should give your support politically. Now, on social media, when they opened up the first day of early voting, all you saw was black complaining about the long lines and malfunctioning machines. Well, guess what? Predominantly white areas had the same issues, but they weren't complaining. So you can listen. You can turn me off right now. It doesn't matter to me. But will you get upset if you decide to listen? It's highly possible. Will you downvote or dislike this? It's highly possible. Do I really care? Well, that depends on what you think I care about. Will I care if you get upset, downvote or down like this? Nope. The thing I care about is if you are willing to learn something. That's what I care about. Now, one of the craziest things to me is to hear racists accuse somebody else of being a racist. And the ironic thing is, when you criticize a Democrat, black folks automatically label that person, that other black person, a Republican, especially. Now, limited thinking politically and economically, you listen to some other videos on this channel, you'll hear a focus on economics quite a bit. But limited thinking has actually kept us as a people in bondage for a long time, and we can't even see it. Now, a few years ago, an article came out that, and it was titled "Should Black Americans?" Well, the actual title was "Should African American Leaders and Celebs Keep Meeting with Trump?" And one black lady actually said, to say you had a productive conversation with Trump, no, you didn't. You had a photo op that he needed to advance his own agenda. She's a college professor, black college professor. And our congressional Democrat over out of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, she said she understands the need to work with people to find common ground when she was actually questioned about those blacks who decided to meet with Trump. And she also said isolating ourselves is not a strategy. And she said that's for those people who want to condemn the blacks who met with him. I mean, think about it. For years, we have cried, we've criticized, we've condemned, and we've complained that the Republicans would never allow us a seat at the table. And now that you have a Republican named Donald Trump, we're criticizing. He opened up the place settings at the table for some of us to sit down, and we're still crying. We're criticizing, we're condemning, and we're complaining. And you know why? It's because as a people, we love to be victims. And our Democrats keep perpetuating that mentality toward us that we are victims. And we love the Democrats, but even in spite of them keeping their thumb on our foreheads, because they talk to us with feel good language. Now, we cried that we should not have met with him. Well, I'm using we as a general term for the black folks who did meet him. But we said we shouldn't have met with him because he's racist. Well, if you listen to a couple of the previous videos, flag on the plate. We had nothing to say when Martin Luther King and the other civil rights leaders met with LBJ, who openly used the word nigger or nigger, depending on your translation, who we knew was an open racist. And we were just cheesing when those black folks met with LBJ. Now, LBJ wasn't shy about his use of the word. But we want to say Trump is just trying to get blacks to kiss his ring. Now, I remember working with a guy some years ago, and I'll be honest, I didn't like this guy. In my opinion, he was one of the lowest pieces of scum on this earth. He was a user. He was a sexual predator whom the company kept transferring from store to store in order to keep quiet what was going on. And he was a liar. I'm not going to even tell you what ethnicity he is, and it's not the one you think either. I'll just say you raped my crew, and you put the rest of the sentence with that. But he eventually got fired for making advances on one of the young ladies who worked up there with us. And what got him fired was he had actually fired a gentleman who was really, really good friends with the lady. And when she told her friend what was going on, he called corporate office and reported what he was doing. Because the young lady wouldn't say nothing. She wouldn't even talk to me. She wouldn't talk to anybody, but she talked to her friend because she trusted him. And so they came in and met her in a secret meeting and gave her some hush money and asked her not to say anything. And they got rid of him, and he went on out the door. But I've always taken a position that I can learn something from everybody I meet. And he said one thing that I've always kept with me. He said, if you tell a man you will give him $10 and you give him $5, you've actually angered him. But if you just walk up to him and hand him $5, he'll appreciate you. Now, why did I mention that? And what does that have to do with this talk? Well, LBJ gave us the Civil Rights Bill, or at least that's the part history wants us to believe because he signed it. The bill was actually Dwight Eisenhower's bill, and your black leaders refused to acknowledge it at all, with the exception of Adam Clayton Powell, who was a black Democrat. And Powell said this bill was the first emancipation since the one Lincoln signed. Now, the reason that your black leaders, Roy Wilkins and other guys that were with King, said they couldn't support it, they said because Eisenhower didn't do enough in the bill. Well, guess what? Eisenhower also had the voting right portion included in that bill. So how could Dwight Eisenhower put the Civil Rights Bill in place to give us back the right to vote and desegregate all the military and all this other stuff, and it wasn't enough? And then LBJ comes with one thing a few years later, and we jump on board. And then a year later, he gives us the portion of the bill that he took out, which was the voting rights portion, and he puts it back in 1965 like he done did two things for us. But Eisenhower's bill had both of them in one bill. So what we need to know is that LBJ and JFK both voted against Eisenhower's bills in 57 and 60 because he had two of them. Now, as I mentioned, the voting rights bill portion was actually in Dwight Eisenhower's bills because he wanted to give the blacks in the South their right back to vote that Democrats had actually stripped from them. Think about that for a little bit. Because LBJ signed Eisenhower's bill uh, that he had previously rejected, he just wanted to put his name on it because did he already know he would become the future president? I mean, he wanted his name on a bill for something that was going to happen in the future once he was president. And, never mind. Let me keep going on. I'm not going to even get off into that one. I want to stay on what I'm talking about. But the point I want to make is I don't care what I learn from the guy at work. There is no way in hell I would support him in any future endeavor because I knew what a vile human being he was. Now, I say was because I don't work with him no more. I don't know if the guy's still living or not, but that doesn't change my opinion of it. Now, LBJ may have signed the bill into law, but LBJ still hated black folks. LBJ called his chauffeur nigger up until the day he left the White House. LBJ still addressed blacks as nigger when he talked to his congressional and Senate buddies. But he loved him some niggers, or so we still think to this day. And I've actually had blacks tell me he was a Texas white boy, and that's just the way they talk. Now, my wife doesn't like me to use this word, but do you realize how stupid that statement sounds in order to justify supporting him? Now, let me tell you the language of Trump. And the reason I can understand the language of Trump to a degree because I read some of what Trump believed in years ago, long before he ever threw his hat in for the presidency. The language of Trump is and has always been money. And as black folks, since we don't understand money, we don't understand Trump. He came through the system of New York politics, and if you do some research on how businesses have to operate there, you might understand why he's so crude. And I'm not making excuses for him at all. Have you ever met some of the people from the New York area personally? Because I have. And I know how some of them are. Some of them are some of the rudest and crudest people I've ever met in my life. And not once did you ever hear me say, vote for Trump. But it's amazing that we can always support a Democrat, regardless of what they've done in the past, what they're currently doing, but we will not afford the same luxury to anybody that wears a Republican label. I mean, that was evident with Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater had been supporting blacks since 1941. And, I talked about the reasons why he didn't support the 64 bill. You'd have to listen to some of my other videos to get that. I'm not going to get off into that on this one. But we can continue to make excuses for our Democrats. And the ironic thing is, black folks will continue to justify LBJ's behavior, but they will continue to condemn Trump's. Now, do we even realize how we sound? And we keep wondering why nobody takes us serious. And we keep proving time and time again that we have a problem thinking about anything outside of the Democratic Party. We're just like those Israelites that Moses went and freed from Pharaoh, that he took out of Egypt. And the Israelites kept begging Moses to let them go back to Pharaoh. Pharaoh beat them. He oppressed them. He barely fed them. He abused them. And he didn't pay them. All of your slave masters were Democrats who beat you, who raped you, the men, women, and children. They oppressed you. They fed you pig feeding, pig intestines, and they work you without paying you. And speaking of pig feeding and pig intestines, which many blacks still eat, because of my upbringing with that passed down mentality, I ate that nasty stuff too at once upon a time. Now I don't anymore. Now I don't know how true it is because thoughts just come to my mind all day. I mean, I even have to wake up in the middle of the night because sometimes my dreams are so vivid. I have to get up and I keep a tablet next to my bed many nights because I have to wake up in the middle of the night and write notes down because if you go back to sleep, you won't recapture that thought. So I'll wake up in the middle of the night because I'm dreaming about something and I'll write down what I'm dreaming about. So my mind's always going. And so this thought just ran through my mind, you know, but I wonder if when you get away from eating that slave food, as my stepson calls it, uh, does it allow the brain to clear up a little bit so you can think better and different? I don't know. It's just a thought. But isn't it amazing that the party that did all of that to us, they did everything in their power to get you back on their plantation because blacks came out of slavery voting for Republican and Democrats started redrawing the district lines so blacks couldn't vote Republican, and then they started making them take a literacy test, and then Jim Crow came, and then convict leasing came, all of that stuff. They wouldn't even let blacks into their conventions in 1934, and then that was even called the Klan Bake Convention. Klan Bake Convention, KKK, which was their terror organization that they created to get blacks back in line. But the difference with what the Democrats did back then and today is they enslave us mentally. That's why 90% of us can't leave the Democratic political party plantation. During slavery, they appointed black overseers and black preachers to watch over the slaves and listen in on any conversations that they had about trying to escape to freedom and reveal it back to the slave master. And today, the Democratic Party uses black preachers and black politicians to do the exact same thing. Now, I was just told the other day that Joe Biden hasn't said or done anything racist in the past 10 years. I mean, can people really be this stupid? And once again, forgive me. My wife does not like me to use that word, stupid. And for years, I've been searching for alternatives. Haven't found one yet. So I'm going to have to keep using that one until a better one comes along. So forgive me. So apparently, people can be that stupid. And I answered the guy. And I said, what about the other 37 years he's been in office? And I was told that people can change. And I'm a big believer in people being able to change. But I don't think Joe Biden has changed. And I think the only reason the guy could even make a statement like Biden hasn't said anything like that racist within the last 10 years, because I think he wants to look at the 8 years during the Obama presidency and say Joe Biden is saying, well, if we know anything, vice presidents are basically nothing but a figurehead anyway. They're just there just in case something happens to the president, but they don't really have any prominent role as the VP. So that's why he didn't say that. If you pay attention, you go back to when Obama was in office, every time Biden said something, Obama had to come behind him and correct him. So, but it's amazing that when we are justifying our decisions and our positions and our choices, we can always make excuses for the person we want to support. But when we hate someone, regardless of anything they do, we can find fault with everything they say and do. Nothing they can do is right once we have our mind fixated on how we feel about them. Now, he said Biden hadn't said or done anything racist within the last 10 years because he's changed. Well, in the past few months, he's made a few statements that are debatable. He said on one of the guys' radio shows If you don't vote for him, you ain't black. Now, say what you want. That's a racist comment in itself. What Biden actually said was black folks can't think, and they have no need to think. Now, one of your black people that you love also said the same exact thing a few years ago, and we overlooked it. She told you can't think either, but you love her. Later, Biden would say that Latinos are much more diverse people than blacks. Is that not a racist statement? Then the one that blacks have told me was really taken out of context is the one where he said during this period of the virus that basically glad he didn't have to leave his house because you had black women stocking the shelves to show that they contribute to society. Now, I worked retail for a number of years. I started working retail when I was in high school. And I've worked retail in various capacities. I've worked it as part-time, full-time, hourly, salary, management. I've on the merchandising side where I went from account to account. I've done all of it. And I've worked with all races. As a matter of fact, if you go into a store right today, you will see people of all races stocking shelves. So why did Biden single out black women only? You know why? Because Joe Biden's makeup is one of racism. That's what he thinks about black people. He thinks the only type of work we can get is stocking shelves in a store. I mean, think back to what I just said. We're not as diverse as the Latino community. You know, he said it might be a couple of us, but that's about it. But Joe Biden thinks we're at the bottom. And that's all we can occupy. I mean, go back and think about some of the things you said about Obama, but, you know, before he was elected. But, you know, do your own research on that. But I've worked with all races. Now, each one of Biden's comments equates to the same thing. We've been placed in a box by Democrats, and they believe we are too simple to move out of that box. And I mean, I guess 90% plus keep proving them right. Because the 10% that's not voting for them always get called names. Donald Trump actually only got 8% of the black vote. George Bush only got 8% of the black vote. Now, that just tells you something. If these guys are winning the presidency with 8% of the black vote. And the only reason Obama got in is because those blacks who went and voted wanted to do they get their cool hood points, even black Republicans, and go vote for them so they could say they was on that side of history. So, and that's why he was bumped right up through there. But because 95%, I think 95, 98% of blacks voted for Obama the first time, and I think 92, 93% voted the second time, something like that. So the ones that didn't vote, most of them stayed at home. And so Plato said that wise men speak because they have something to say, and fools speak because they have to say something. And I know a guy personally. I've been knowing this guy since I was elementary. His conversation is so focused on politics and politics only that if you say something or you post something on social media, he will always find a way to say something political in a way to bash Republicans and Trump. The even sadder thing is, he's not even that wise on politics. He's tried to challenge me quite a few times, and I've shut that down. You know, it's like I said, you know, if you're going to want to debate me on a topic, and I'm coming to you with 3, 4, 5, 6 different sources, and the only source you're going to use to solidify your position is Wikipedia, we can't have an honest debate. And so A pastor friend of mine posted on social media the other day about abortion being a sin in God's eyes, and men and women need to make more responsible decisions before deciding to procreate. I kid you not. This dude said, "You and Trump always want to tell women what to do with their bodies, but neither of you provide a solution for them to take care of those children." I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Did you find that comment stupid like I did? And I mean, forgive me to ask that word again, but I haven't found one since I've been talking. I haven't found a substitute since I've been talking. Because if you didn't find that comment stupid, I did. And like I said, my wife doesn't like me to use the word, and I'm still going to have to keep searching for one, so forgive me. And so I'm going to keep searching for a substitute for the word. Now, Kanye West met with Donald Trump to talk about prison reform, and we complained about that. And Donald Trump actually pardoned a black lady named Alice Marie Johnson, who was 63 years old at the time, and she was actually serving a life sentence in federal prison for a first-time drug offense. Steve Harvey met with Donald Trump, and he got talked about. And I guess his feelings got hurt so much that he would later openly say he regretted his decision meeting with him because black people made him feel so bad. Now, our emotions are not in check at all as black people. I think we love to be ostracized so we can keep complaining. We love to be on the outside looking in, and that way it proves the point that Republicans don't care about us. And like I said, Trump opened the door. Now, that actually reminds me of the literacy test that were administered to black folks before they could vote by white people who were actually illiterate in the Democratic Party. Now, Republicans never did anything like that to black folks. They just welcomed blacks right on into their polling locations. But we ironically leave the part out about who actually created the literacy test for black folks to vote, because it doesn't fit our narrative of who the true oppressors of black folks have been historically and right today. Now, Alveda King, who's the niece of Martin Luther King, said blacks need to be at the forefront of conversations with Trump. Martin Luther King III actually met with Trump. We called him all kind of coons and everything else. Billionaire Robert Johnson, the founder of BET, met with Trump. And Robert Johnson said he doesn't think it's fundamentally in the best interest of African Americans to be locked up in one party, particularly in an environment where everything is a zero-sum game. And Robert Johnson's a lifer Democrat. He actually voted for Hillary in 2016, but he still went to the table to meet with Donald Trump when he got the invite. And when asked about who he was supporting this election, he said, "I don't know yet." He said, but Donald Trump has done several things that have benefited blacks. He said, and I would rather support the devil I do know than the devil I don't. He said, because the only thing Biden has proved to me that he's going to do is force everybody to wear masks. Now, the thing that's a big dust up right now is Ice Cube meeting with the administration. And now he's being ostracized. And Ice Cube himself said no president has done right by black folks. And he's receiving criticism because a lot of blacks now want to say that the plan is for black women only. Well, in my opinion, I think the only reason that's being said is because Katrina Pearson was the one who made it public about Ice Cube meeting with the administration. And this is actually termed the contract with Black America. And Ice Cube said that when he brought it to the attention of Democrats, they said they will address it after the election. And that's basically hinging on if they win or not. Because it doesn't matter one way or the other. The Democrats have proven historically that they're not going to do anything to benefit black folks. They lie to us continually and then do nothing once in office. But we love them still. But he said the Trump administration made some adjustments and agreed to meet with him. And he said neither side cares about black folks. And I'm not going to disagree with him on that at all, because it's a systemic thing. Now, the project is kind of called a Platinum Plan, and it was first discussed over in Atlanta. And it actually includes proposals such as increasing capital in black communities by as much as $500 million, I believe what it is. I doubt if it's 500 billion, but 500 million. And giving blacks better access to better education and job opportunities. And sadly, he knew before he did this that black folks will come out against him. And as he said, who knows what will become of the plan? But if you don't go to the table, the answer is automatically no. Now, I'll just throw this in there because I remember when Ice Cube first came on the scene with NWA, and I remember when his first solo album came out, and he already told you how to feel about it, because he had a song on that very first solo album called "A Nigga You Love to Hate." So he ain't worried about y'all. Now, if you don't go to the table, the answer is automatically no. It's just like a guy's interested in a young lady. And I don't agree with young ladies approaching guys if they're interested. I believe a guy should approach a young lady. That's just me. Call me old-fashioned, what it is. I went and met my wife. And that's just how I've always been. But if a guy's interested in a young lady and he would like to take her out on a date, the first thing he's going to have to do, he's going to have to approach her and introduce himself. He's going to have a conversation with her. And he's going to have to get a way to communicate back and forth with her so he can't ask her out on the date. Or it could be like me. I had talked to my wife. My wife worked at another store part-time, and I liked the voice on the phone. And I said, I got to go meet this lady. And when I went to the store, I told her who I was. And if you know my wife, she, okay, what's this got to do with me? And I told her, I said, I'll be back to take you out to dinner tonight. I didn't ask her. I told her. And she didn't believe me. And I showed back up when she got off work. But if you don't take the initiative to make a step forward, the answer is automatically no. Now, I've read many articles and responses from black people criticizing Ice Cube for meeting with the administration. And one popular online magazine, Black Magazine, said Trump is just calling out token Negroes to come to the White House to get black support where he could have been doing things for blacks all along. Well, I'm going to talk about some of the things he's been doing for blacks since he's been in the White House. Now, as long as Ice Cube was the nigga you love to hate and F the police and Once Upon a Time in the Projects and Steady Mobbing and rapping about Ghetto Bird, we loved Ice Cube. But now he's become the one we love to hate. Now, all the black folks that met with the previous president, they went and attended parties, hobnobbing, brushing elbows with that administration. But we never heard about any plans for Black America coming out that administration. What else do they have to show for their visits? I mean, we complain all the time about condemning each other publicly, but anytime a black person meets or works with Republicans, we say they're cooning. Isn't that amazing how that works? Now, here we go again, talking out both sides of our mouth. We say we shouldn't talk about each other in front of white America, but we mad at every black person that done met with Donald Trump, and we airing out our grievances in front of white America. I mean, we messed up in the head. So if you're going to be critical all the time, not just when you want to ostracize someone because they're trying to get something done that could benefit us. And like I said, Ice Cube said, we don't know what's going to happen. But if you don't go to the table and talk about it, the answer is no. I read something actually before I thought about making this video. And I normally do my videos weeks and months in advance. So this wasn't even on the radar to do this video. And so I just came up with the idea to just do this here recently. And I read something right before I started recording this. And I subscribe to a lot of different things and got an email from a guy. And every week he sends out an article on biblical issues. And his latest article was talking about something called outcome dependence. And he said outcome dependence is doing something for someone else in order to achieve a certain outcome. I mean, all of us do that. So what's wrong with meeting with someone who is looking for a desired end on both sides? And that works, like I said, that works both ways. And here's a couple of examples of what outcome dependence is. Say someone bought you a gift. And when you open the gift, you had a certain expression on your face that basically conveyed to the giver that you weren't as excited about it as they thought you should be. And so the giver is now angry with you because you didn't respond the way they expected you to. Or you apply for a job and you don't get the job, and now you're mad at the person who interviewed you. So what Ice Cube is saying is if Trump doesn't do anything for blacks, he ain't tripping, because that would be the same thing that blacks have been getting from the Democrats all along. Now, we love Jim Brown. We loved him being a great running back in the NFL. But when Jim Brown met with Donald Trump, the love that black folks had for him disintegrated. Don King met with Trump long before Trump was ran for the presidency. Don King met with Trump since he's been president. But nobody had anything to say about Don King, and it's probably because him and Trump speak the same language, which is money. Now, it's ironic that rappers use Trump in their songs for years. Trump met with Rosa Parks. Trump was with Muhammad Ali. Trump was with P. Diddy. Trump was with Mike Tyson. And he was never racist back then. But now he's racist. Now, I will agree he's crude. He's rude. But, now he's racist. So, but under Trump, before the virus hit, black employment had been moving in a positive direction. And blacks excuse that because they say Obama gets that credit. And I'm not going to argue with that, because black unemployment actually was trending down before Trump took office while Obama was still in. But I will say this, because I studied this at the time, as I always study under practically every presidency since I've been an adult and able to vote. Many blacks actually stopped looking for work under Obama. And because of the way the labor statistics are reported, when you drop out of the workforce, you're not included in those people that are unemployed anymore, because those numbers were a lot higher than that 5 point and 6 point something percent that was being reported to us. And so when you talk about, and another thing that's not taken into account is the people that were underemployed, that lost full-time work and were only working part-time. So when you add those two numbers up, when they were talking about the numbers around 5.6% or whatever it was, I think it was like 97 million people in a country of 330 million. So how can that be 5%? But you're going to do your own research on that if you want to. And I say if you want to, because I know most of you won't. So That's one of the reasons black folks got mad at Tavis Smiley and Cornel West. We love Tavis Smiley, Cornel West, Tavis Smiley, the black contract with America, going around the country with all the different black leadership and everything. We love Tavis Smiley. But when he criticized Obama, he lost all his black hood points. And Tavis said blacks had lost ground in every positive category under the Obama presidency. Now, I didn't see it. Tavis did. Now, under Obama, unemployment went 16% or higher on 10 different occasions, and 15% or higher 13 times. Those are two separate times, not the 15 included in the 16. That's a total of 31 times unemployment for blacks was at 15% or higher. Amazingly, officials in his administration said high black unemployment would actually have to be accepted as the new normal for black folks. And that's why Trump asked black folks what they got to lose by voting for him, because Democrats had failed over and over again. Now, many black men who are always at the bottom when it comes to employment and economics said, well, what the hell have I got to lose? I'm not working now, but let me utilize my vote and get this guy a chance. And you know what? Many of those black men are gainfully employed full time under this administration now. And that's something they didn't have under the previous president. So for them, they got a return for their vote. Now, in December of 2018, Trump signed something called the First Step Act. It was called something else before then, but they finally settled on the name, the First Step Act. And he signed that into law in December of 2018. And it passed Congress on a large bipartisan basis. And it actually included several provisions. And in that bill, it was to scale back the emphasis on incarceration, that the high incarceration rates, especially for blacks, that happened in the 1990s. Due to the 1994 crime bill that your black congressional caucus went and begged the Democrats to push forward. Now you go and check how many of your congressional black caucus members, who are all Democrats, supported that 94 crime bill. And so Trump put something in place to say, we need to address this issue. But the sad thing is, many of us blacks are complaining about the high incarceration rate, and we've already went in the early voting lines and punched the tab for this guy who wrote it. Now, I mean, that's pretty sad. And under the First Step Act, it actually shortened the mandatory minimum sentences. It scaled back the 3 strikes law, which the 94 crime bill put in place. And it gave judges a little bit more leeway in sentencing the nonviolent offenders. Because 3 strikes, and that was it at the federal level. And so it allowed the judges to kind of do some different things instead of the automatic 3 strikes and you out. And now contrast that with what one of the things Obama did while he was in office. He actually increased funding for more federal prisons. Now, do your own research. You know, I'm just giving you bits and pieces and a little information for you to go research for yourself. And so also in that was provisions to go in and make some of the conditions better in the prisons for the inmates. And, you know, I got my own issues with that. You know, if you do the crime, do the time. I'm not totally concerned about your living condition, to be honest with you. If you don't want to live like that, don't do things to put yourself in a position to go there. Man, that's just me. But under this act, 3,000 inmates who had actually been sentenced for crack were supposed to be the first beneficiaries of that bill. Now, I don't know what's happened since then, but I understand, a lot of people have been pardoned. Trump also signed a $360 million grant to support HBCUs, which is the most any president has ever approved for HBCUs. Now, in Barack Obama's first budget as president, he actually stripped all of the funding for HBCUs. Then a year later, in his next budget, he gave the funding back, and then black folks made sure they let it be known from the rooftops that Obama had done something great for HBCUs. Man, we got to stop being this simple minded. Also, right before Obama left office, he actually gave Holocaust descendants another round of reparations. Now, guess who put forth that legislation? You got it, Joe Biden. Obama himself actually said blacks didn't need reparations because he was questioned on that several times. Now, is it amazing that you had a black president, you had a Democratic majority, and reparations talk was never on the table? Isn't that amazing? But Obama said blacks didn't need reparations because now we had better access to education and jobs and things like that. Amazing. And as I stated earlier, Tavis Smiley and Cornel West were outspoken. And Emmanuel Cleaver actually said, we will be marching on the White House had a white president taking the same stance that Obama took. And I believe that to a degree. I believe we'd only took that position if it was a white Republican. Now, Cleaver's exact words were, President Obama knows we're going to act in deference to him in a way we wouldn't to someone white. But you know what? Obama had to get a pass because he was black. And you know what? That's how the system conditions us as black folks to shut up. They'll put a black pastor in front of us, or they'll put a black politician in front of us to tame us like we're wild animals. And that goes back to how historically they've said that we're akin to apes or we're beasts. Or you go back a century later, about 120 years later, when those books came out and said, we prowled at night like beasts and things like that. So they put a black pastor, a black politician in front of us to tame us because they feel like we're getting restless. And they felt like black folks had gotten restless, and that's why they put Obama there. I mean, they put him there for other reasons, but he was actually put in place to quiet the natives, if you understand what I'm saying. Because the black pastors and your black Congress people and your few black state senators and state representatives wasn't doing nothing. And see, when you understand that your black politicians are being used to manage black America for the system, you might wake up a little bit. So they threw Obama into the fray to quiet us down again. And for 8 years, blacks were living in a state of utopian nostalgia. In essence, blacks were lulled back to sleep. And it was like blacks had actually been given anesthesia before an operation. And for those of you who have ever been under the knife, you know how it works. I've been under quite a few times. And what they'll do, they'll put the anesthesia drugs in your IV line, and then they'll start talking to you while the drugs are starting to flow. And your eyes are open before the drugs start to take effect. And the next thing you know, you wake up in a recovery room. So while the anesthesia was being administered, the 2008 presidential nominee was talking eloquently and making black folks feel good. And black folks went to sleep for 8 years. And they woke up right in time for the Trump-Hillary election. And, I even said in my book, in black folks' mind, if Jesus Christ was running on the 2016 ticket as a Democrat, he wouldn't have been good enough for black folks. In January of 2019, not 2019, actually 2015. Uh, a columnist named Lauren Burt, black lady, she actually wrote a piece titled, "Is Black America Better Off Under Obama?" And the article actually starts off by saying, like the rest of America, Black America in the aggregate is better off now than when it was when I came into office, said President Obama on December 19th of 2014. And that was actually in response to a question by Urban Radio Network's White House correspondent, April Ryan. And Lauren Burt started off her commentary by saying, what planet African Americans are doing better off on is unknown. What is known is that President Obama is about to leave office with African Americans in the worst economic situation since Ronald Reagan. And I'm not going to go through and pull up everything from the article she said, because she made several bullet points and she included her commentary under those bullet points. So I'll actually include the link to that article in the description box. Now in 2016, Obama said he tried for 8 years to fix the economy and nothing can fix it, not even Trump. Trump took office, the economy improved, and in 2019, Obama said Trump didn't fix the economy, I did. It was my work that fixed the economy, just like I planned. I mean, this dude here. And, you know, why hasn't he left the public limelight like all previous presidents that have come before him? I saw a video the other day, and a gentleman, he wouldn't show his friend's face, but he was talking to him on video. And he asked him who he was voting for, and the guy said he was voting for Biden. And he asked his friend, why are you voting for Biden? And he said, because he wanted Trump out of office. And he asked, well, what has Biden done for blacks? And the friend said, he's done a whole lot. And he asked them to just tell him one thing that Biden had done for blacks. And once again, he said, he's done a lot. This guy could not even give one thing that Joe Biden has done to improve things for blacks. And that's typical of us when we're asked the question about our Democratic politicians. More times than not, we cannot name one thing that has benefited us. Don't say Obamacare, because that was across the board for everybody. What has a Democratic politician done for black folks? I already told you about the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Act, so you can't even count that. What has Democratic politicians done for us? I mean, Gerald Ford even invited blacks to the White House when he was the president and asked what he could do for us. And Gerald Ford actually extended Negro History Week to the entire month of February, and then it was called Black History Month. And so don't sit there and tell me what these folks are doing. I stated in the other video, the Republicans had a 1991 Civil Rights Bill, but that kind of flew under the radar. Now, what have the Democrats done for us lately? Now, Maryland's governor, I mean, these folks are just willing to do anything. And I mean, do what you want. You know, I don't care what you do. Vote for who you want to. I don't care who you vote for. I just put information out there. You make the decision with the information, or you don't make a decision. If you don't make a decision, you done made a decision. But the Maryland governor up there wrote in Ronald Reagan. He said he wasn't going to support Trump. Now, what I've noticed is the establishment, Democrats and Republicans, lifers, all hate Trump. Think about that for a minute. The lifers, all the lifers on both sides hate Trump. The mere fact that the establishment hates him is enough to let me know, as crude as he is, he actually must be doing something right. because these lifers have been in politics forever and they ain't got nothing right yet. So for somebody to come out and hate somebody, it's more to it than they just don't like him because of his Twitter post and, the crazy stuff he says publicly and all that. It's something much deeper than that. So he must be doing something right if all the lifers are upset with him. It's kind of like the truth. You put truth out there and people want to reject it, but guess what? The truth don't care. Did you hear me say vote for Trump at all? My sister said a guy got mad about the option of voting third party. And he tried to equate voting for Democrats and Republicans as the same as rooting for the Miami Heat or the Los Angeles Lakers to win the championship or whatever. However, this NBA season is going, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, to be honest with you. I don't really follow sports anymore. I haven't followed sports in about 20 plus years. Even though I played football growing up all through college, I haven't played sports. I haven't followed sports in a long time. I mean, if you want to waste time, spend 2, 3, 4 hours watching a 1 hour event. But that's just my thought process. But my sister said a guy got mad because it was mentioned to vote. You can always vote third party. And he said if you're going to watch Miami and Los Angeles play, there's no third team to root for. I mean, here we go again. I mean, these folks just stupid. You only have 2 teams playing for a championship, but you have more than 2 parties running for the presidency. At one point, just a few years ago, you actually had about 37 active political parties. But did you know that? No, you didn't. So that guy is limited in his thinking. And as I close this out, one thing I want you to remember, it was actually a third party called a Republican Party that was formed in 1854, which means none of the Republicans owned slaves, that abolished slavery. I didn't say Lincoln abolished slavery. I said the Republican Party abolished slavery because you had the Democrats and the Whigs. And so the Republican Party was formed to get rid of that institution called slavery. And even, I just thought about this. Even a few years ago, Joe Biden said, if you go out and vote Republican, they're going to have y'all back in chains. And well, Republicans never had blacks in chains. The Democrats did. The party that Joe Biden has been a part of his entire political career. The party that actually had blacks in chains. And he was speaking on behalf of the party that had blacks in chains, said if you don't vote for the party that had blacks in chains, you were going to be put back in chains. I mean, this stuff is just crazy. I mean, something is wrong with our thinking. And my cousin posted something on social media earlier. Well, I guess I should say yesterday, because once again, I'm in the wee hours of the morning recording. And hopefully this one came out with no background static or clicking sounds as I had issue with a few videos ago. But she was saying that we need to figure out why we get mad at Ice Cube. We need to try to figure out how to work for the betterment of us as a people. And I responded to it and I said, the problem with that is if black folks who vote Democrat find out black folks vote Republican, they don't want anything to do with those blacks who vote Republican or third party. Black Democrats feel like if you're not a black Democrat, you actually not working on behalf of the race. And so Walter Mosley said at the State of the Black Union that was here in Houston right after Katrina hit. I believe that was 2005. That black people need to get together, figure out what they want, tell the politician this is where we stand, and if you don't meet it, we're going to take our vote somewhere else. And I agree with Walter Mosley. Will we do it? No. I doubt it very, very seriously. Can we do it? Oh, we could. But will we do it? Probably not.